You are now listening to Out of the Blank.
Welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with Jake Hibschman.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So Jake, tell me please, and for the wonderful people out there, a little bit about yourself.
I am from a small town in Illinois called Casey. It is about 4 hours south of Chicago. If you've heard of Casey, it's probably because we are where a lot of the world's largest random objects are, like the world's largest wind chimes, golf tee, mailbox.
We're talking about the world's largest ball of twine, is there?
Yeah.
Holy shit. This is where we go, people, when we don't know what to do, but we're traveling and we see the random sign and the stranger selling firewood.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. We just made the world's largest golf club. I don't know who's going to use the thing.
Oh, screw it. I'm just going to get me the world's biggest golf club. You know, that's the reason why there's more tigers in Texas than all the wild of the world.
Really?
It's because they don't have a law that says they can't own tigers. So they just start buying tigers. Then one guy's like, wait, Jim's got 13 tigers. I'm going to go get me 14 tigers. Now, I've podcasted with people in Texas who say this is a fact, that people just own these large freaking cats.
I loved when Mike Tyson told the story about when he bought his tiger. Like he ordered one from while he was in prison.
It's funny though. He had a bunch of them. There's like pictures of him, like Calvin Klein underwear, freaking by his pool, holding a chain, like with a tiger.
He's just holding on a fucking chain. He's like a freaking psychopath.
Did you hear Charlie Murphy's story about that? Charlie Murphy's like, Mike Tyson came to pick me up in this Cadillac, and next thing you know, he has a freaking tiger in the passenger seat.
Yeah.
We're like, what the fuck? I'm not getting in the car with that tiger.
I'd be scared as shit to get in that car.
I'd be
that
like,
thing.
Right.
I just think that thing would just maul me.
It's like Ricky Bobby when you go and try and get in the car with the cougar. Don't chauffeur.
I don't know what to do with my hands.
So what do you do professionally?
Let's see. My day job, I work at the local high school. I'm a teacher's aide, but I also, in the evenings, I'm a fitness trainer. And then I just started a podcast with me and a couple friends of mine. So I'm usually pretty busy between those three things.
Hitting on the teacher's aide kind of aspect, what made you want to kind of dive into the world of education?
I didn't. It came out of necessity. I spent my time in college, and long story short, I majored in something that, aside from having the bachelor's degree, it's kind of useless for me now. I got a bachelor's in sociology, and pretty much around here, unless you've got like a master's or a doctorate, it's kind of hard to find work for that.
You're finding that anywhere, dude. I'm telling you, man. I got my associate's degree. I thought doors were going to open up, and they were like, no, now you need a bachelor's. I'm like, wait a minute, what? And they're like, yeah, by the time you get a bachelor's, you'll probably need a master's for anything to really get a good sustaining job. Like now a requirement on your resume is like being having an associate's degree. I was like, before it was barely even getting a high school diploma.
Yep. And then you fall into that trap of, well, we're not going to hire you because you don't have experience, but I need to work so I can get the experience. So it's
now, for someone that actually wanted to go into philosophy and a little bit of sociology myself, can you tell me a little bit about sociology that you found so interesting, or was it just something like, I'm just going to get my degree in this?
I think at the time, and it's funny. I'm 30 years old now. So back then I was still trying to figure out who I was. And so the sociology department, study of groups of people, I kind of thought maybe I'd learn a little bit about myself, like why I tend to gravitate towards certain people kind of deal. Because that's what sociology is broadly about, is the study of the way groups of people behave.
It's because we look alike.
Yeah.
I started figuring that out when I was like 13 years old. I was like, why are all the jocks in one area and why are all the nerds in one area in our school? And I started realizing it's because they have things they can connect over to, like, how much did you run today? Well, I ran 10 miles. Well, I ran 11 miles yesterday. It's like, okay, well, pull out the fucking ruler. Let's measure.
Right.
I just found it really weird that, like, if you look up any government experiment, if you look up anything of this sort, you're going to find that the reason why we test on people is it's in a different location because those people look nothing like us. Anything that looks remotely like how we look, like white guy, whatever that, it kind of makes it seem cruel. But it's easy to test on like Guatemalans or like Tuskegon people, and that's where you hear all these experiments come out. And I just found a correlation with we always did our testing somewhere else, not on the factor of us doing it here and being caught, but on the concept of the dangerous stuff needs to go somewhere else where someone does not look like us. It makes it, I guess, right in a way. And I'm like, that's completely wrong.
Hmm. Something like an interesting thing. Like I took a social stats class as like it's one of the like 4 prereqs that you have to do with that. And so with that, you're able to ask like any question. So like if you wanted to predict the likelihood of someone of this race, of this income, et cetera, like your religion, whether you were raised in a single parent household, or like all the little factors, and you can plug all that stuff in and like ask a question: how likely is this person to commit a crime? Like that was like a question you could ask and look at all the data that they had in their mainframe.
It starts turning into that fucking movie where they have that robot floating in the tube or whatever, like the little bath, and then he starts predicting crimes so that people can stop them before the crimes happen.
Yeah, what was that Tom Cruise movie?
Tom Cruise is in that, right?
Yeah,
I hate
where
Tom Cruise. I can't stand that man.
I'm indifferent towards him. My parents love him. He's okay, but he's not like one of my favorite actors.
I always tell people you can't trust a guy with a tooth in the middle of his face. And people are like, what? And if you look, like, literally he has legit tooth in the middle where like the nose in the center of the face is. He has just a tooth right there, and it's like dead center. And I'm like, he's got basically 3 up front teeth, where normal people just have the 2 front ones that you see. He's got the freaking 3rd one right there, and you'll never.
Now that you've pointed that out, I'm every time I look at him, I'm gonna see it now.
Yeah, you're never gonna unsee it. I basically messed up so many people in my family with just that information.
Well, it's just like that dude from that after the Walking Dead show, The Talking Dead. He has the giant Adam's apple.
Yeah, Chris Hardwick.
Yeah, he's got one of the biggest Adam's apples I've ever seen.
I want to know the social reason why we pick out people's flaws. Because I do that a lot. I mean, I don't judge at all. I try my best to be like, why am I judging this person? There's probably something wrong with myself. And it's funny because I studied psychology. So I found that a lot what was dealing with psychology also dealt on the line of kind of sociology in a way, on the concept of you got to look at a person's background. Like for psychology, environmental influence is a big thing. A lot of therapists use that factor as what's causing stress in your life. A lot like either whether how you were raised, if a kid's raised, I say you take 2 kids, one, they're identical, genes, everything of that sort. So you take one, put them in a good household. You take one, put them in a bad environment. What's going to happen is they both still have 2 pathways of which they can do. That kid that's rich and has a wonderful life could grow up to be an asshole and just think wealth is going to be thrown upon him, or he can use his money in a benefit factor. The second kid can choose the life of cruelness because the world was never given right to him, or he could choose to rise above that and create a better environment for himself.
Now that's also going to come down to the parenting from the parents in both the rich and the poor family, because the rich parents, whether they're just kind of the uptight kind, it's just like, here, throw some money at the kid, I'm not going to be bothered with the kid, or teach the kid to appreciate what he was born into. That could, like, in a nutshell, could be
it's about moral values, basically.
Yeah, kind of instilling that sense of decency in the kid, instead of just him thinking, oh, I'm rich, I'm kind of above all these other people. Whereas on the poor side, they might not have a whole lot of money, but like you said, if they instill the proper values, then they can, if the idea is if they work hard enough, they can possibly get out of that.
I'm very open-minded and understanding when it comes to people, but when I see like where people are going to be spoiled for the rest of their life and just want things handed out to them, is on the factor that they constantly want help all the time. And I try and tell people, like, I don't ever ask for help unless I truly need it, because I don't want to rely on anybody because people tend to be unreliable when they're not doing anything to kind of help themselves out. Sadly, that's what we kind of created with a lot of things like technology. It's kind of made it so we all kind of like, if you have, let's say your podcast, you start having it take off, okay, and it was just you promoting it. There's going to be people that are going to come to you and let you know, like, they can help you get even farther, but you have to change your structure a little bit. Like when I set out to do my podcast, I had people tell me like 5-10 episodes in, my family members say, if you did this, I could help promote it on our radio network, because my parents are in broadcasting. And I said, no, I don't want to do that. Well, if you just limit it to an hour conversation, people would probably listen to it more. That's not the point. The point is, I post these episodes every single day, and the conversations I have with these unique individuals are completely different on the concept of what you're listening to is how long we have to talk for. How long? I don't try and limit them. I usually don't plan anything afterwards on the concept of, I don't know if this could go 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. I podcasted with my cousin on Christmas Day. We were eating shrimp crab cakes and a shit ton of coffee after opening up presents. And we're just sitting there like, he's adopted. I've never met him before. Okay. So it was me learning everything on that podcast. And halfway down the line, we're talking about technology getting to the point where Terminators become real and all this shit happening. And it was 2 hours and 45 minutes. It took forever to upload to YouTube. But it was something I was like, you guys are literally learning as I'm learning. And that's the point of at least for me in a podcast, like with what I do.
The thing I like about podcasts is I think anymore it's the proper way to have discussion when it comes to just about anything. I mean, I gave up watching the news a few years ago just because it's so bite-sized on the clips, and
it's completely one-sided.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter what channel you're watching. CNN, Fox, doesn't matter.
And I think it's like crazy because people take things a little bit too far when it comes to the news. They tend to live their life by it. Basically, they see one thing on the news, like, murder and this thing. I'm like, you guys got to understand that happened all throughout history. We had murders happen every single day, thousands of them or hundreds of them. But like, it didn't have a platform to be reached so far. Now it's like you turn on the news, you're seeing like 50 right before you eat your bowl of Frosted Flakes. It's like, holy crap. Can you give me a second?
I hate to say it, you almost start to become numb to it a little bit.
Right? Like, it's like eating the same thing every day. It just becomes like a thing. You don't even care for the taste anymore.
Yeah, you almost don't care anymore. It's like, oh, another shooting. I mean, that sounds morbid, but as often as we hear about it anymore,
it's making people cruel little bastards. I think it's the same thing technology's doing. The fact that, you pop up, see an Amber Alert on your phone. The first thing you're thinking of is, why did this wake me up at 3:00 in the morning? Why can't it just let me sleep? And you hit ignore on it. I think when we start giving people more of an outlet to get bad information, we choose to just let it numb us. I mean, comfortably numb is basically the point, It kind of freaks me out a little bit.
Like, I used to think, I mean, I still do a little bit, but to a lesser degree, when I listened to Alex Jones talk to Rogan a few months ago it was a 4-hour show.
That woke me up to a bunch of shit that I did not know about, Operation Paperclip and everything else under the sun.
Oh my God, yeah. Like, it's funny how much, like, some of the things that he's said has happened.
Yeah, dude, Project Jedi, what he was talking about with Albert or General Halberstein or Bunderstein, whatever he was saying. The
German guy?
Yeah, well, not Werner von Braun, the one that made the NASA space program, which is true too. Alex Jones said it. I tell anybody, you listen to that episode, every 5 minutes Alex Jones goes on a rant, pause it. Now look back at what he said, look that shit up. I did. All of it's on the CIA website. Project Jedi, that movie Men Who Stare at Goats, that's a real fucking project. I thought George Clooney when I saw that movie. No, that happened an hour away from my house. My mom went to that high school. She was like, wait a minute, that goat thing was real? I was like, yeah, that's real stuff. And then you find out the Nazis made our whole space program, and then you start finding out even deeper and darker stuff. You're like, why isn't this looked at? Why isn't this taught in history books?
It's agenda.
What agenda?
And I think I say that kind of snarky, like, the Cold War really wasn't covered too in depth. Like just as an example, like when I was in school, and then when I learned about how much like the communist threat was kind of like just kind of glossed over, and then you see all these people wanting to do all these kind of socialist groups not really paying attention to the history that happened last century.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, I think the easiest thing for the government to do is if the government was just real about everything they're fucking doing. I think it would be like the same thing with news when we're seeing everything happen and we just become numb to it. If the government was telling you what they were doing and not making it a secret, you would be less attackful against them. Area 51, for example, that whole shit, everybody storming there, Naruto running, and people are going to get shot, bodies dropping. I think the whole concept was if the government was like, if you just pay us $10 to come into Area 51, you're going to see some shit we don't want you to see. So if you're ready for it, sign this waiver, $10, go in and get out. That's it.
So,
I think people go in there, they're going to be people that are fucked up. Like, I didn't want to see that. And the government's just going to be like, well, we told you. We were cloning shit.
I do wonder if some of that's been going on, but I don't think it's at Area 51 anymore. I think maybe it was at one point. Now, as for like that whole group that's wanting to storm the place, I thought what would be funny is if they just put all the props from Independence Day there.
Right, that would have like Will Smith, like guys.
Yeah, get Will Smith and Jeff Goldblum with that old '90s laptop with the little green stuff sliding on it and the little countdown timer.
Dude, that would be the best. That would make so many people's day. I think the whole concept of like, you think Area 51, you think some alien technology. I'm like, man, I don't think that's what it's there. I think what's there is they're doing some top secret military stuff when it comes to experimental military aircrafts and stuff. I don't think they just don't want, like, because they have stuff that's 20 years advanced than the stuff we have now. So what you have is a phone, the government's already had something way, way past that. I'm
Yep.
like, instead of looking at aliens, maybe we should look at what the government's doing when it comes to testing human subjects. The fact that now we have successful brain transplant surgery, where now we can literally take your brain out of your body and put it into another body.
That makes me think of like that Turtles character Krang. I was got like it's the brain inside the stomach.
Don't do this. Don't do this. It's got a gorilla body. Freaking. Oh, dude, I'm telling you, if you could splice yourself with one animal, what would it be?
Oh shit. You know what? I think a chameleon.
So you can go invisible or change color.
Change color, just blend in.
So you could just like click into different social groups. Like you just want to click into like a black group or an Asian group.
I didn't think of it that way. I was just more thinking of fucking with people, like just blending in with a brick wall and then jumping out and scaring people.
Yeah, give people so many heart attacks. Let's make the death count even faster. If I was going to splice myself with an animal, I would probably choose something that can breathe underwater.
That's a good one.
Because I would not stay on this land. I feel like there's too much undiscovered in the sea that I want to find out. I also had dreams of a kid being a merman, so.
Did you ever see the Meg?
That freaking giant dinosaur?
The Megalodon shark movie that had friggin' Jason Statham in it?
I never saw it, but if it has Jason Statham in it, I definitely need to watch it.
Okay, this isn't really too much of a spoiler. Like, and it's at the very beginning of the film. Like, they go to the very bottom of the ocean. There's like this ice layer, and they drill through it, and there's like a deeper part of the ocean underneath there, where there's like all these giant, obviously a megalodon, like giant squid, and just all kinds of undiscovered or thought to be lost sea life under there.
It's the release of the Kraken. You know what movie I really, really liked? Journey to the Center of the Earth.
Is that Brendan Fraser?
Yeah, Brendan Fraser.
Yeah. I haven't seen that in a long time.
It's so good though, because it like created this fantasy that under the ground that we live in now, there's like another Earth basically, but it's filled with all the prehistoric dinosaurs. I'm like, that would be a cool concept. The fact that there's T-Rexes living down there. I think it's weird because people talk like, oh, dinosaurs never existed, all this stuff. I'm like, I get it. I try and see it from your perspective. I get you're convinced this, but I'm like, don't you think there's been so much weird shit we can't explain that there's probably some prehistoric monsters that used to be here? I mean, come on now. We definitely weren't the first life here.
I was listening to your last show and that giant sloth you guys were talking about.
Bruh, the Megatherium needs to come back, okay? I would buy one and sell my car to ride on this thing's back and make a tunnel system.
Like
Let
I
me
looked
tell
at
you something.
I looked at a Google image and that thing I think that thing was bigger than an elephant.
It was, yeah. It's about like if you stack two elephants on top of each other. And then dude, it's so weird because like it makes tunnel systems like ants. So I'm like, yo, you could be doing that as subway travel.
Maybe that's how Atlantis disappeared. One of those like dug under it
Dude,
and made it collapse in.
Let's make some weird ass theory on how something happened and see how far it goes. I think when you know how there was Pangea, all the continents were connected into one.
Yep.
Imagine if the meteor hit that and split off. Now, imagine if that meteor is what held the dinosaurs inside.
So, do you think that
and they just de-evolved into the animals we have today?
Okay. I thought maybe you were gonna what's that one like that tunnel Earth theory where it's like a pocket dimension in the Earth, like the hollow Earth theory. That's the one. And like at first I thought that's where you were going. Like after the meteor hit, the dinosaurs were in the hollow Earth and like they were still going on in there, whereas the rest of us are out here.
Or maybe a meteor hit and then the dinosaurs fell underground to like where it was like Journey in the Center of the Earth.
Yeah.
Dude, that's a good concept.
Along with the lizard people that, people speculate about.
What do you think if there's aliens here? Do you think they would actually be here? Because I feel like they are not here, only on the concept of they're looking at us like from afar. Like these guys aren't fucking ready yet.
So I've got a couple of things. By the actual definition, I myself have seen a UFO. I'm not saying it was an alien craft. I'm saying I've seen a UFO.
So you've seen an unidentified flying object.
Right. So around here, the average tree lines are like maybe 70, 80 feet tall. And then you've got your cell towers, which are probably a couple 100 feet tall. This thing flew in between those two heights. It looked like just a flying cigar. And the creepy thing to me was this was at 2 p.m, so it was broad daylight. And the thing made no noise as it flew over me. There was no sound of a motor. There was no like exhaust. I didn't see any apparent windows on the thing.
Man, I always there's this one comedian that has a joke like the only reason aliens haven't been down here, I think it's Joe Rogan, where he's like, the only reason aliens haven't been down here is because if Mexico designs airplanes, they're going to come down here and see Mexico flying airplanes. Like, fuck, they got airplanes now? Get out of here. Get out of here. Start pulling out. I'm like, dude, I always found a fascination with so much stuff that happened on the world. Like, all right, I don't know if you ever thought of this, but like, you know, when you hear a bowling pin or like a bowling ball hit some bowling pins and it makes that loud thunder, like crack sound.
Yeah, that loud clack.
I think that's why people go bowling for some reason. I think that type of like release your brain gets from that and that kind of imagery, it kind of sparks in there, like that loud bang is what makes bowling so popular, because usually it's in areas where there's not too much weather going on, like it's either drought or something. You're not experiencing thunderstorms. So people get that because for some reason, like if you watch a good thunderstorm, like afterwards, you'll feel 1,000 times better.
I love to listen to thunderstorms while I go to sleep.
Exactly. Like a lot of people, like I've been woken up one time by a thunderstorm, but like sleeping in a rain, like something like that, like you're just in your house and you're hearing the picker patter of like water just hitting like your skylight or just hitting your window, like that can soothe you.
Yeah, if there's not and like I'm having trouble going to sleep, I'll like grab my phone and like play an hour of like just a thunderstorm or like when you hear rain while you're driving your car.
Dude, sometimes
if you ever been the passenger seat while like you and whoever's driving is going through a storm, the sound of rain hitting the windshield, to me, it can knock me out.
You know what the weirdest thing is when you're driving? If you're driving your car, it's really late at night and you're just seeing the white lines on the road, but you're just sitting there in like silence, no radio or anything, window a little bit down, and you just hear the boom, 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 because you're going over like the road and you're hearing those bumps.
Hmm.
Dude, that'll put you the fuck out while you're driving. You'll have to like roll the window down, slap yourself in the face, try to wake yourself up. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Stick your
Yep.
head out the window. Have you ever been driving at like 2:00 in the morning and just start kind of like nodding out at the wheel?
Yeah. More times than I am willing to admit.
Dude, I've watched my parents drive back and forth from Florida in a day. Like we would go all the way up family road trip. I'd be passed out in the back car with my Neo pet toy that I got from the Happy Meal that I got. Yeah, I still collect those motherfuckers. They're like $800 on Amazon. But no, I would sleep back there and I'd wake up and we'd just be pulled over on the side of the road. I'm like, what's going on? And then like my mom's like, I had to take a nap. Like I just drove 14 hours straight. Like I had to pull over or we were going to crash. And she was like, there were times like my dad too would be like, it's driving. My dad would go all the way to Florida, see us for like an hour and then have to drive all the way back 14 hours just to go and do his job the next day. And then he would do that back and forth because at the time my mom was dealing with my grandfather had passed away and my grandma lived in Florida. So my mom went up there with me and my brother to live with her for a little bit, at least for the summer, kind of get like her out of her little like depression thing.
Yeah.
And my dad was taking trips on a daily basis back and forth, literally sleeping an hour back where we live and then coming right back after work and then doing that because he barely slept. He was like, there were times where coffee was just the thing to do. So now whenever we go and take a road trip, if it's me and my dad, he stops at like these Wawas religiously and gets the same thing. He goes, this is what I was getting every time I stopped. The pizza combos and freaking that. And like that's just became like a tradition that we got.
Dude, not back and forth like what you were saying, but I remember driving back home from a wedding in Texas. I drove to Texas with the groom. I got to come back by myself with all of the groom and bride's presents, and that's, like a 12-hour drive. So I only did that like one way, so I can imagine, but I couldn't do that, dude. That's insane to go back and forth those 12-hour drives.
Wait, the presents, were they opened or were they still closed?
They were still closed.
You should have fucking turned off and got lost or something. And then like all the presents got robbed because like, then why did you have $8,000 when you came back? I definitely didn't sell it at the nearest pawn shop.
What have we got in here?
Yeah, dude, but that's how hard that must have been for you not to wonder what's in those gifts. That's like Christmas Day, and you're like sitting down there, like, we can't open them yet. Till who? Till grandma gets here? Well, tell her to hurry your ass up because I'm about to open up this present. It's like you get Yu-Gi-Oh cards. The first thing you want to do is you want to rip them suckers open. You want to know the mystery, and then when it's over, you're like, shit. I wish it was still closed.
That's something I wish that I didn't throw away was my Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
Bruh, I've been buying them online. They sell them like 5 cents a card, dude. I have literally a giant briefcase like Kaiba, the dude with the metal briefcase.
Yep.
I got everything, bro. I got separate decks. I got like 50 decks that are all sorted out to different themes. And my buddy's like, what are you doing? I'm like, what? He's like, don't you have anything else to spend your paycheck on? I'm like, no. I also bought a bunch of Bakugan too. He goes, dude, you're fucking wasting your life. There's people on eBay selling this shit like 500 Bakugan for $50, and you could sell each one of those individually. And they just made a comeback too. They now just got put back into Walmart.
It's like, hey, dude, if I get enjoyment out of this, what do you care?
See, the problem was I stopped playing with it because this is around the time the Xbox age hit. So I only had like a brief year with all my Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon cards. And then next thing I know, they got sold at a garage sale for like $5 for a giant tub of them. So now I'm like recollecting my whole past. And like, I have family now that like, can we sell this? I'm like, fuck you. I'm 20 years old and those are my Pokemon cards.
Dude, how much money was that tub that was sold for $5 probably actually worth?
Whoever got it is probably really, really lucky. And probably it feels like I go thrift shopping on like one of my days off. And I'll tell you, dude, I find Yu-Gi-Oh cards, Pokemon cards, old track records, all these things like that were from the past. And it's a nostalgia effect. Like I'm like, how much is this? And the guy's like, 25 cents. I'm like, you're gonna sell me 10 Bakugan for 25 cents? Yeah. Well, I don't know what the fuck. What, 50 cents? I'm like, no, I'll take 25 and just toss him a quarter. Next thing I know, I'm freaking out the door like,
Oh my God.
right?
I just got a steal. Me and a neighbor of mine on the Yu-Gi-Oh cards, we used to watch the anime, and because we didn't know how to actually play the game, so we kind of based our dueling each other on what they did in the anime, kind of.
Yeah. See. All right. Who was your favorite character?
Bakura.
All right. My favorite was the tsunami guy and also the insect dude, Weevil.
Weevil I liked. I'm trying to remember who it was that Joey got the is a random card, but I really liked it. It was the Sword Hunter. Like every time he destroyed a monster, like he got 200 attack points added to him.
You mean the Flame Swordsman?
I don't think it was the Flame Swordsman. It was like some sort of like sword. Like it was like a. I'd have to Google that one. I remembered I liked that one and Jinzo. Jinzo was the one that like negated the trap cards.
Yeah, and basically screwed you over. And then someone had a Mirror's Force or whatever, and they just ruined the whole game for everybody. Or had a Cyclone, and you're just like, oh, God damn it. All the cards get off the field.
The thing I didn't like was that Red Eyes Black Dragon was a cool card, but he wasn't often that useful.
Yeah, that's true. Like, it took a while to get him there, and then once he was on, it's like someone could easily, like, with higher attack points, get him.
Yeah.
I think it's funny how religiously kids and even adults took Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon when it came out. There's this video on YouTube that shows, like, Pokemon, like, in my life now, and it's like, my dad had 3 blue eyes white dragons, and all the kids, he used to fuck them all up in the neighborhood. And like his dad would just come out and be like, "Hey, faggot," and like let's say all these things, like, "Whoa, whoa!" And it was like it literally showed how impactful like Pokemon cards were. Like the whole concept of you can literally just like if you had one card, every kid like basically bowed down to you in school. You were seen as like God. You know, you had like he's got a what? He's got a Charizard. Holy shit. And it's like everyone's like on the ground like having a seizure. You're like, calm down, calm down.
I remember I was in 5th grade when that craze started. And there was a kid on the playground who had a Charizard and a Blastoise. And that was back when it was like all the parents heard about like the value of the cards and they're like, whatever you do, you are not allowed to trade that card on the playground.
Now, were girls just lining up and dropping their pants for him, or was he just like baller status? You got to think what grade it was first. Or do you say anything?
It's been like 20 years since then, so I got to think back.
Got all the chicks, yo. Everyone was giving him the chocolate milk that they had at lunch because he had the Blastoise and the Charizard. Okay, you're a teacher's aide. Do you like the school lunches?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. More often no.
What's your favorite one though? Because I've podcasted with someone that I know is like best friend in my family, and he is a lunch lady, and he tells me
he's a lunch lady.
He's a lunch lady. Yes, that's literally what he wants to be called.
He wants to be called. Okay,
and he's a marijuana advocate too, which is. But he's like the best thing on the menu is the fact I can pull out this pizza. And these kids just go fucking nuts. I'm like, yes, the pizza was the one thing at lunch when that showed up. You were getting like 2.
So when we had pizza here, the pizza now is okay. But we used to have the pizza that fit perfectly in the little rectangular slot on the school lunch tray. We don't have those anymore, and they don't taste as good. They got different pizza.
It's weird because they always had 3 different types of pizza at my school. They had like the regular triangle one. And they had like a square piece, and then they had the one that was like looked like you just cut it off a sub. You know what I mean? Like you got either the sub roll. It was like you just take the sub roll in 2. So instead of it being on top of each other, and the one was just pizza. It was like kind of like a garlic bread pizza. That was pretty good. But
that sounds fucking amazing.
All the kids fought over freaking the mozzarella sticks, and then when we had Tex-Mex.
To answer your question, though, I'd say that my favorite school lunch would probably be chili and cinnamon roll.
What school did you go to?
Casey, Illinois. It's a little town of about less than 3,000 people.
It's like some fancy shit right there. My school was like, you're gonna eat this processed ham. And I'm like, okay. It doesn't make me feel good afterwards. Oh, your stomach hurts? Lie down in the nurse's office.
How big a school did you go to?
I went to a school of like 6,000 kids.
Oh shit! So what was your graduating class size?
My graduating class was like 600 people.
Oh my god, my
That
graduating
took freaking forever. I
My
was
graduating-
pissed off, man, at the last kid that started with the last name Z. Yo, we were all about to fight him at that point. We were there for 2.5 hours. I was like, who is the asshole with the Z for the last name? And then it's like some small child gets up, like probably was just lucky to be there. And he was just like, hello. And they're like, oh, welcome, Ashir Zahimbar. And he's like, everyone's just like, all right, we got to fucking clap for this guy.
It's like, yay, we're at the end. No, my graduating class was not quite 100.
What?
Yeah.
Did they make it last longer because you didn't have as many people?
I think our ceremony lasted about an hour.
You lucky, dude. I will never forget being in the middle of the group of kids and having to pee more than anything in the world, and I could not just randomly get up. You know what I mean?
I'll do you one better on you think my class of 90 some was small. There's a town about 10 minutes from Casey called Martinsville, and one of my best friend's wife graduated with a class of 17. That's how small this town is.
Dang, I want to go to that reunion like 10 years later.
5 people showed up.
It's crazy to see, dude. Okay, if you look at like when you graduate and you think those people are going to be like you're going to see them every day and you never see them again, basically they just have completely different lives now. Like the fact friends that you would go over and spend the night at their house, you don't even talk to those people anymore.
No, I keep in touch with one person from my graduating class.
Like, and they got to be like strong friendships too. Like you guys had to get in like almost in a car accident or something to actually stay together. Like the whole reason I'm where I'm from, like right now, where I'm the only one in my family besides my brother that was born and raised in Ocean City, Maryland, was on the concept of when my dad graduated high school, him and his buddy had a plan to move down here and start like kind of live here for a little bit and kind of start their own lives here. And like 2 weeks before graduation, his buddy got hit by a car and got killed, but he got killed by the teacher.
What?
Yeah. So apparently, there's like this hill. My dad's from Baltimore. So there's like this hill and, it was like kind of foggy that day. And the kid was walking like kind of at the lower part of the hill. So you're just going up the hump and you can't see anything kind of because of the fog and also because the hill. Yep. And, he went, I guess was kind of going kind of fast over the hill and went over and didn't see the kid on the other side of the thing and ran him over. And the worst thing the teacher did was hit the brakes because the kid's head was right where the brakes were.
Oh man. Dude.
Yes. So when that happened, my dad was like, I'm going to kind of, for both of us, I'm going to move down there and start my life. And he actually met my mom at a restaurant that I used to see until they tore it down. But it was crazy to hear that story. I was like, damn, like, I'm born and raised here, and I would always sit there and go, "This town sucks." And he goes, "You don't even know, man. Like, this is something like I had to do, like too." He's like, "It's awesome. You have the ocean on one side and the bay on one side." And I'm like, "Yeah, but we get screwed over when it rains because next thing you know, the water just rises up and then everything's freaking ocean."
That's crazy, man.
There's some crazy stories like that, dude. I think the concept of like how I even got. This is a major left turn. I mean. Like if we gave the wheel to a blind kid, he's just ripping us off the road. So, or you ever get that feeling like Chris Farley says when you're driving down the road, you just want to jerk the wheel, like if you're a passenger. Yeah, I get that all the time. Like I'll crash both right now, like, I got the power. But it's like my fascination with like games like World of Warcraft, Assassin's Creed, kind of ancient historian games kind of came from where I was taught a little bit of ancient history in school and started finding out a little bit more about folklore and kind of magic in a way. Because that's in our history. It's hard to like when people say, oh, that stuff's not real. It's like, but is a little bit of it real? I mean, come on.
and you wonder, like, when the Greeks came up with like those monsters that they, like the Minotaur, the Cyclops, all these things, were these actual creatures? Were they the bones of prehistoric creatures that they didn't know how to identify, and they put the bones back together wrong? I mean, there's a lot of what ifs there.
You know what the study is on the brain, right? With the fact of all these monster movies that we have and all these crazy monsters that kind of come out. Like, who the hell designed a werewolf? Like, who thought of that? You know what? You know how that our brain does that? So
How?
our brain cannot make new faces. So the people that designed the werewolf and created that in their mind using their brain imagery or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
it's a mashup from a bunch of different animals and a bunch of different people combined into one. Your brain cannot recreate a face. It cannot make its own. It can only take from what it's seen. So it's really, really freaky. So any type of monster movie, anything like that, like, how did they think of that giant bat-like creature? It's because the guy who designed that and thought that up originally took it from a bunch of different things, from animals, from all these things. So they say when it comes to a werewolf, it was a crossbreed between like a monkey, a bear, a bunch of stuff that all went mashed up into one with a bunch of human personality traits to it too, which created a werewolf.
I know one particular author then who probably saw some fucked up shit.
Which one?
Lovecraft.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure, dude.
Well, if you can
Cthulhu,
only if you can only recreate like what you've seen, granted it can be a mishmash, but it has to be stuff you've seen. I mean, I've seen like a lot of the fan art of people drawing Lovecraft's descriptions of all of his like elder gods and stuff, and it's like, holy shit! Like,
I think like I have a huge fascination with Greek mythology. And I think the only factor that really limited in on that was on the concept of there were these people that looked like men and they had godlike powers.
Zeus and all of the pantheon of gods.
Yeah, man. Like I was really pissed off the fact that my school did not teach that class very good. You know what I mean? They did it like we're gonna learn about this for 3 weeks about ancient history. And I'm like, can we do this longer? Can you do this longer? Like this is actually pretty cool. You know, we used to throw people in iron bulls and burn them in there. Like, did you know about that?
What's an iron bull?
So an iron bull is literally a giant metal like sculpture of a bull, and it has a side like kind of like an oven. It has a side thing that opens up, and what they would do is they would take slaves and people that committed a crime, and they would throw them in there, and they would close it. So they're in this iron containment thing, kind of like someone puts you in an oven. What they do is they light coals under it, and they burn you from the inside.
Holy
But the
fuck.
weird thing was how they designed it was they made 2 holes in the bull's nose. So when you would burn and cook, the smoke would come out of the bull's nose. And they called it the Iron Bull.
You know, some sick fucker at least wanted to make it as realistic to their imagery of a bull's like snorting.
Yeah, right? It's like, dude, there's so much freaky torture devices. One day I was at work and I was just sitting there bored out of my mind, and it was like Snapchat was like, "You want to know the weirdest torture devices in history?" I'm like, "All right, I'm gonna dive down this rabbit hole real quick." And I dived down it, dude. We had this thing where they would take your arms and your legs, not with the horses where they spread you apart and do that type of thing. You know what I'm talking about?
No, I'm not familiar with that
You
one.
ever seen The Mummy?
Yeah.
Okay, in The Mummy, the dude, they tied one arm to one horse, one arm to another horse, your leg to another horse, and your leg to another horse. And they had
and they pull them apart.
Yeah, split them apart. So what they did was they take your arms and your legs, kind of hog tie you, so you're kind of dangled up in the air with kind of your ass pointed down, and they had a pyramid that was sitting at the bottom, a giant metal spiked pyramid, and they would lower from your ass all the way into the pyramid and just split you open like that.
You know, a lot of these people were probably bored back then and were trying to come up with creative ways to kill people.
I think at one point you steal somebody's sheep, he's gonna find ways to kill you. He's gonna do something.
Yeah, it's his prized sheep.
They do. I've seen so much with Mythbusters, like they did the bamboo torture where they tried to grow bamboo under somebody and see if they would actually have enough to pierce through your skin, and it does. It actually would be able to pierce through, like, they had a couple seeds under this, like, kind of, like, fake dummy body that you could, like, shoot with, like, Jello. It's supposed to be just, like, real body, and,
Yeah.
it pierced through the kidneys, it pierced through all that, the heart, it pierced into the lungs. These bamboo just kept on growing. Bamboo would literally grow through fucking anything.
I know I've seen like can't remember if it was like Predator or something like, but yeah, I know bamboo's used like for a lot for like traps and stuff.
Bamboo's not bamboo. Predator is the reason why I can't, if I hear a bike, like a nice like track bike, go down like a hallway or a room or something, I immediately freak out because I'm hearing that clicking noise and I start thinking it's Predator. Yes, dude, perfect. I was all right. So I work at a hotel, and it was like it's kind of stormy out, weather, like kind of dark. And I'm sitting there like getting ready to go. I'm like half tired, like kind of waiting for the elevator. And this dude had a bike in his room and I didn't know. And he's rolling down the hallway. I'm hearing clicking. I'm like, fuck. I'm like immediately like thinking I'm about to die, and the dude pops around the corner. I'm like, yo, I just thought Predator was about to screw me over. Like I had those moments, man. Like it's crazy because I started doing diving really into research in school when I was looking at auditory hallucinations, the fact that your brain can take these random trips down so many roads. I don't know if you've kind of picked this up yet, but I have a fascination with the human mind when it comes to the types of shit we can create.
So I got a question for you.
All right.
I don't know if this, I guess this would kind of be considered in the paranormal. With sleep paralysis and people seeing the shadow man.
Okay.
What do you know much about that?
I do. I also know about hypnic jerks. So me being an insomniac, I have a buddy that sleeps with his eyes open. So I was actually going to do a podcast experiment with him, like just try and watch him, see what happens when he sleeps. But so sleep paralysis is actually pretty common, but it's only common when it happens with hypnic jerks. Hypnic jerks are when you feel like you're falling and you randomly pop up and you're like, what happens?
I get those a lot.
All right, what happens is that's your brain's way of trying to it's when you're about to fall into your third REM cycle. So this is like where your body's supposed to get immediate deep sleep rest, like it's where your body's healing and stuff. What happens is your heart, all that stuff drops to really, really low, and your brain thinks you're dying, and it tries to wake you back up, which is called a hypnic jerk.
That's almost kind of like a the defibrillator. It makes you think of that, like gives you a little jolt.
And it really brought onto a weird theory I discovered. So this theory, are you willing to step into this realm?
Oh, dude, I'm open-minded here.
Okay. Now, when you have rapid eye movement while you sleep, so your eyelids are shut and your eyes are kind of like moving really crazy under them.
Mm-hmm.
I think, now this is just a theory, I don't actually believe this. I just thought this would be a cool idea. We talk about dreams. Dreams can also be interpreted to an alternate universe or another way our brain slips us into something, like we're going into another dimension, much like you open a doorway and next thing you know, you're in freaking Canada or something. I think when you're doing rapid eye movement, it's your brain looking for an alternate universe, which is that dream that you fall into. And some people say that a hypnic jerk is actually you waking up from that reality and coming back into existence.
I've wondered similar things, and we mentioned Lovecraft earlier. There's actually a really good movie. You can find it on YouTube. It's called Out of Mind. Spoiler alert for like the very end of it. The main character falls asleep, and Lovecraft's also a character in the movie, and it's he falls asleep during around the time he's alive, which is like the 1920s, something like that. And the main character falls asleep in the 1990s. They meet and talk to each other in the dream realm.
Okay, so that's actually a legit thing. There's a thing known as dream walkers, and what dream walkers are there's dream walkers, and it's on the same concept of astral projection. I don't know if you know what astral projection is.
It's kind of like
it's like meditating, but you can kind of bring your spirit out of your body.
Yeah. I've seen the imagery like in WoW and like a couple anime I've watched as a kid.
Now that started in like Beijing or some part of Taiwan. There's actually a thing called dreamwalkers, and dreamwalkers. I'm trying to think of the legit name for them because I did a podcast on them, Starts with a C. Uh, but these guys literally they talk about interpreting your dreams because my buddy has a really weird dream system. Like he gets randomly like nightmares a lot, and your nightmares are supposed to decrease when you become an older age. The reason why they're so impactful when you're young is because your hormones. Your brain's not emotionally developed correctly. It's not physically developing correctly. So what happens is you experience nightmares. You're supposed to experience them maybe once every 3 weeks when you're a kid, and it's supposed to kind of tamper off around like probably 9 or 10 years old. But there's people that experience night terrors. So night terrors are like you scare yourself every single night. Like every time you go to sleep, you're basically afraid to go to sleep. It creates more insomnia to the point where you end up getting really tired and falling asleep to long extended points, kind of like Nightmare on Elm Street. Well, dream walkers or dream interpreters, what they would do is they would try and go into your brain like Inception, but they wouldn't use a machine. They would, as you're sleeping, they would try and sleep and connect with you on the same wavelength. By you keeping a dream journal, the best thing for you to do if you have nightmares is keep a dream journal. When you wake up, immediately write down everything, but all the major key points. Don't write down like, I was on a bridge and then the bridge, it became windy. And the next thing I know, I wasn't on that bridge. Don't write down stupid shit like that. Write down stuff like bridge, water, danger, those types like major keywords so you can look back at it later and then it'll re-spark into your memory. Because the fact is you're not going to remember your dream after like an hour after it happens. It just doesn't last in there. But with a night terror, this is a way for people to get over those. But these dream interpreters would use that and then use a form of meditation mixed with some herbal supplements that they believed in back in like this year in China. And they would be able to go into your dream and help you solve your problem by showing you like it's just a dream, kind of like in the movie, like someone goes into someone's dream, like it's a monster, but it's in your head. You can beat it. And then like kind of showing, oh, I got the power.
So I've got a question about like just my own personal experience because you definitely know more about this than I do. So I'm just going to try to explain what I was told to kind of look at it as a kid by my older brother. And then when I moved into my current place a little over a year ago. So when I was a kid, I don't know if they were night terrors but like I would wake up and I would think I would see things in the bedroom. And so I'd wake up my brother and he'd, like I'm telling him I see something. He turns the light on and he says, now look at the spot where you thought you saw the thing and tell me if you still see the shape of it. And he'd turn off and I'd say yes. So I kept that in mind whenever I would have one of these experiences. When I moved here, it was like 2 or 3 weeks after I started living in this house, I woke up and in my doorway to my bedroom, I saw what I was pretty sure was the outline of a woman in a white dress. And so I shone my phone light on it and it went away. And when I turned the phone light off, it wasn't there. There wasn't the same outline. So I don't know if I was like, if maybe it was like some chemical off in the head or what the deal was.
Okay, so what I was talking about with these dream interpreters, they're also called one-ironauts. I don't, you could probably see it on my phone, but these guys look like they're astronauts in a way, dressed up in suits. So
Yeah.
one ironaut are like able to go inside your dreams. The best thing to kind of overcome one of your dreams is you have to rationalize it in 3 ways. One, you have to submit to it. You have to realize I'm on a boat that's sinking. There's sharks in the water. It's going to happen. I can't fight it. 2, you have to try and fight it. 3 would be to admit that that's happening, but also realize it is a dream, which is very, very difficult. It's hard to wake yourself up when you're in a dream. When you do realize it, it's like then you immediately can do whatever the fuck you want. It's called lucid dreaming. People actually practice doing that. Now, what you're talking about was seeing an outline. So you woke up and saw this outline.
Yes.
Okay.
Like I actually distinctly remember what I was dreaming. I guess this would be more of like a ghost kind of comment.
It might. I mean, I try and be as open-minded as possible. It just sounds like you were how old were you when this happened?
I was 29. This was last year.
Oh, shit. Um, I don't know. It might have shocked you so much in a way that when you woke up, your brain was still kind of processing the dream. You know what I mean? Have you ever just woke up and you were still half asleep?
Hmm.
Like you thought like you went downstairs, made breakfast, ate, got your clothes on and shit. And the next thing you know, you wake up like, what the fuck just happened? I thought I went downstairs and made breakfast. That might have been what happened with you.
Yeah, I could. That, yeah.
I think it could. I mean, hey, I'm not off to the paranormal either. You know, I think it's really weird the fact that there was a government project where a bunch of scientists sat down in a room, created a ghost, and then used a Ouija board to summon that ghost.
Well, they say that like when a person dies, like
Their
they think,
memories left here.
well, not just that, but that um like the energy that they think is your soul like leaves the body, and so what, and they think that they've weighed this thing. I can't remember where I've read this, but like supposedly the soul weighs like a pound or something like that, and so like after a person is deceased and when the soul leaves the body weighs a pound less or something like that. So
I think you have to also chalk in the fact that as soon as you die, is it
you
your
also
soul?
defecate.
Yeah, so it's like you're probably dropping a pound of just straight shit at that point.
That's
It's
the
not.
soul. That's
It's
the
not a
soul. Just a
spirit.
bunch of shit.
You're just pooping. All right. So with your podcast, because I wanted to talk to you about that. What are you guys talking about in your podcast?
We started that podcast really just to talk about whatever was going on in the world, and it was an excuse for us to keep in touch because we all grew up in the same town, but we don't live like near each other anymore.
It's a way to keep connected.
Yeah, it's a way for us to keep in touch. Whether this thing takes off or not, if it does, great. If not, it's just a way for us to have an excuse to say, hey, it's Sunday. I'm gonna, talk to Jeff and Caleb for about an hour or so. So
Yeah, I found that's a lot with some podcasters. Are like, yeah, we do this. It's a friend thing. We just get together and we make sure this happens on the specific day. Like everybody kind of cancels their plans and make sure they have this scheduled out for it. I'm like, that's a great way to shoot the shit and connect, man. Because when you do get older, there are things that happen where you're not able to go hang out with your friends anymore. I mean, I'm 21 years old, and the fact that like jobs, all those things now come into the factor. I don't ever get to see my best friend anymore. Unless he's
yep,
right there. It's like, do you want to go out and do something? No, it's I worked. I'm tired. I want to stay home.
yep, and that's just gonna get worse the older you get.
Yeah, and it's crazy because like, man, I remember those days. You used to go over like 13 years old. You just be able to you're finally able to kind of stay out till like 10 or just spend the night at a friend's house. My buddy lived like 15 minutes away from me on my bike. I was there every night through the summer. My dad was like, should I drop you off a toothbrush? I was like, nah, man, we're ordering pizza every night. I always found a fascination with like at least the ability to like go out on your own and do stuff. But like you got to stay connected with people, man.
Yeah, and that's you need a sense of belonging, which I don't know if that's an issue. Like when I was listening to your last show and like talking about the whole online thing, I almost wonder if there's like kind of a disconnect for people, like being kind of, I don't know what other word to say, slaves to your phone. We're so focused on that, and then are you would you be counted as a millennial?
How old are you?
I'm 30.
You're a millennial too.
Yeah, I remember. I think it was Pew Research had the cutoff point for millennials as like 1997.
Yeah, no, the cutoff for millennials is 38 to like you'd have to be 19 or 20 now. I think 2000 was the cutoff.
Okay,
Because now that's the new
and
generation one.
I've heard where our generation is probably the least religious.
Yeah, because so
And
much shit has came out that makes you question.
oh yeah, no, I'm not trying to say anyone needs to believe anything. All I'm saying is from a practicality standpoint, I think something that provided for people was a sense of community, a sense of belonging.
Yeah, it made you go to church and it made you talk to others. You had to go there and you had to connect with other people.
Yeah.
Everybody came together on Sunday. For me, like I'm not religious at all, but I'm open to all interpretations. I actually am an ordained minister under the United Church of Bacon, so I can't really,
The United Church of Bacon.
it's literally a safeguard for atheism. Like I tell people, like I've gotten into arguments with Jehovah's Witnesses. Excuse me. But I try and tell people like you can't be closed-minded ever. I think when it comes to the factor of religion, seems like everybody has a piece of the big picture. You know what I mean? When it comes to the afterlife, we all hit on something similar. That there's this existential being, your soul has to be chosen from right or wrong. It seems like we're all getting a little piece of the puzzle and it all goes together into one. I think I don't know what's to say, and I don't judge people on what they believe in. I just don't believe in you should be forcing anybody to believe in what you believe in. I've met people that do that, and I'm like, just because he's not that religious. Christianity is not even a big religion in America anymore. It used to be the dominant religion. Now you're seeing Muslim, you're seeing so many other things pop up because of the fact that we have immigration happening so much now.
I'm like, I'd say when I was in my early 20s, I think I struggled a lot with, I'd say I was probably closer to an atheist, but the older I've gotten, I'd say I'm a lot more spiritual, probably leaning closer towards Christian. I definitely believe there's a higher power that made all this stuff. Kind of hard for me to explain that, but I think that's where the word faith comes in.
I think
because you can't explain everything.
That's the best part about belief too. But I think what makes something real is the fact you have to experience it first. Like people that experience like seeing ghosts, people that experience that, like that are 100% belief of it. I don't ever say people are wrong when it comes to what they believe in on the concept of I haven't experienced probably what they've experienced. I've podcasted with hundreds of people from all over the globe, all over the states, everything. And let me tell you something. Everyone's got a really belief in something. And when you start hearing it, it makes you really in tune to being open-minded about so many people's thoughts in the world.
Well, you kind of hit the nail on the head earlier when you were saying that everyone's got a piece of it. I think that's the way we need to treat everyone. Like there's a spark of divinity in every person.
Yeah. There's something about us that, there's a group think primal in us that wants us all to help each other. But I think we're losing it nowadays with technology.
I agree with that.
The fact you don't know what's going on in your family's lives anymore as much as it used to be back in the day, on the concept of you guys don't communicate really anymore. I mean, I don't know if that's like that in your household, but like, once you start getting older, you want to branch off and do your own things, but there was still a connection with your parents. You'd call them and be like, yeah, I'm just calling in. I know it's been like a week, amount of money. If you could send some, that'd be great. Nowadays, it's like you have Facebook, you have Instagram, you have all these things that like it's the best way people can connect nowadays. It's not even a connection. I'm still looking at a fucking phone screen. The most we can do is we get a selfie and we're like, I see your face.
Oh my God, you look so good in that filter.
Oh, you look like a cat.
You look so adorable. Oh my God. No, yeah. I remember, and I'm sure you do too, like before smartphones, I remember I had to remember someone's phone number. But when smartphones started to become more of the thing, it was you remember your own phone number so you could give it to someone so they can put it in their phone book and it just fast dials. And I don't know any new phone number probably past 2008 that I've had in my phones.
It's funny that the fact that if I ever get lost or get arrested somewhere and they ask me to call, like I got one phone call, I'm fucked because I don't know what my number is for mom or dad. It's true though.
You might want to get a piece of paper and just write that number 100 times so you ingrain it in your head, dude.
Hey, the button dial doesn't say dad on it. Okay, you don't know your parents' number? No.
No.
What do I look like? Some fucking old ass? No. Also, kids won't know what a landline is. I'm just lucky to know what that was.
I had to explain what dial-up was. My first year as a classroom aide.
I'm lucky I missed that one. I am lucky. I only know the home phone. I had to call. Is John there? Can I speak to John? Who is this? And you hung up.
Did you were you around when you couldn't use the internet and the phone at the same time?
I was at this. I don't think I was even around a house that had a computer until like later when phones were more developed. When we had the little pocket cell phones, the flip
Yeah.
phones, where you had to send it. That would eliminate pissed off people texting. If you
Oh yeah.
sit there and click for 50 minutes to get one word, you have to tap 3 times to get an S, and then tap 2 times to get an A, and then tap 2 times to get a D or something. I'm like, fuck, man. Like now everyone texts a paragraph before I have a chance to even look at the message. I got 8 paragraphs on my phone. I'm like, what did I do?
Back then, if you got a paragraph texted to you, that shit was important.
Yeah, you read that shit. Like this person crafted for 8 hours of their day this one sentence.
Click, 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 click.
Yeah. And then if you ended up messing up, you had a backspace, and next thing you know, it deleted the whole thing. You're like, got it.
Ah, son of a bitch.
Yeah. I always thought it was crazy. We had one computer in our house. It was like the family computer, and everybody got times on it. And nowadays, you just have your phone. Like nobody has to share their phone.
So what are you doing? I'm surfing.
Surfing the web. That's why I say like they're doing a gene chip that they're going to install in the back of your head, so you have like internet, like Google, on the back of your brain. I'm like, I know the intentions for it are pure, but I know people, and people are going to be doing some freaky deaky shit.
Uh-huh.
Like,
Uh-huh.
that kid's not paying attention. That kid is looking up porn on the back of his brain right now.
What was that Bruce Willis movie where they had like perfect versions of them? Like it was similar to the Matrix where you laid down and you plugged yourself in, but like a robot version of you got up and went out into the world. Did you ever see that Bruce Willis movie?
Yeah, and they had like a machine that could shoot the robot, and next thing you know, that it killed the person that was in the simulation as well.
Yes. Yeah. And
Yeah.
in that there were like hackers who I guess would hijack people's bodies, and it was kind of like that whole. Remember how in like World of Warcraft, how you didn't know if it was a girl or a dude playing that night elf chick?
Exactly. And then you were sitting there getting into a relationship over a video game, and then all you sad bastards figured out it's a 40-year-old dude sitting in their basement really playing.
Oh no, no!
My life is a lie.
Oh my god, I need to go defrag my computer.
Dude, I'm telling you, man, like there's so much stuff out there where you start looking into things. I'm like, I hope we even nailed, like, we just totally got off the subject of what your podcast was about. You're like, it's about friends coming together. And next thing you know, we're talking about people getting tricked on World of Warcraft.
I know, that's the funny thing. You start a conversation about this, and then 30 minutes later, you're talking about something that has absolutely nothing to do with what you started.
That's when you know good conversation is there, man. Like we never have met before this. We just randomly, like, I messaged you on Instagram and you're like, sure, man, I'm down. And then next thing you know, we're automatically getting into this. Like, this is what people need to understand about having conversations with people. You randomly can just click. Well, you can talk to anybody. It does not take much, but you even sitting down for an hour, that shit can turn into something you guys are talking about. Hey, instead of talking about the stupid weather chat, like it's raining outside, you could be talking about freaking aliens, porn, and anything else you could think of. The fact that we don't need advertisements for toilet paper because everyone is fucking buying toilet paper.
Oh my god, yeah.
There's too much stuff in the world to be talking about. It's the fact that we're just being disconnected. I think more people need to realize that there's a wonderful thing about associating with people. You meet somebody, you get to know a little bit more about them. If you click, you click. Obviously, you're not meant to click with everyone, but it's something you have to experience. You can't just be on your phone half the time and expect when you do Tinder and you go and meet them for the date, you're still going to be on your phone doing Tinder while they're sitting there on Tinder as well.
So here's and this ties into what you're saying. When people actually decide to actually pursue the things that they want to do, like I decided to finally write out my life goals on a piece of paper. And for anyone listening, I recommend doing that. Like, don't just think of your life goals in your head or like store on your phone. Physically write that son of a bitch out. Put it on your door, put it on your fridge, somewhere where it stares at you every day in the face. One of my life goals was to start a podcast because going back to the driving from Texas conversation, that was what helped me from falling asleep on the way back was my friend had introduced me to podcasts for the first time.
There's something
So
about it where it's like a sense of relief. You know, we talk about Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all these things being a way for people to express their voice. Podcasting is that same thing. You come across a wide variety of stuff that people are interested in, and it might be something you're interested in. You might find a
yeah,
podcast on aliens. You might find a podcast on Raisin Bran. You might find a podcast on fucking ancient Greek mythology that you can really click with.
yeah, and so when you start doing that, the people who are you're meant to meet, uh, you'll meet them. So like I met you, for example, through
Well,
that through Instagram, because me and my buddy Caleb, we were sharing the update on our latest episode, and you found us, and here we are.
there you go. That's what I'm saying. See, random things can happen too, but it's also you start doing something you really want to do, you're going to find people like in sociology, people connecting with their social groups. You're going to find other people like me that's a podcaster that found another podcaster and was interested in what he's interested in. That's how you get content looked at. That's how you get stuff to happen. Everything is a slow process. People need to realize it's not immediate action. The more we take into consideration the fact that if you put the work in, you will get what you put into it. You will get that same result back out. So if you put 100% into it, you will be getting 100% out, but it's not going to be immediate. It's going to take time.
Yeah, you're not going to be great at anything the first time you start it. Because people are afraid of looking foolish, but the thing is you're an even worse fool if you don't try it.
Well, Jake, I really appreciate you being on my podcast, man. This has been a great conversation.
I've had a blast, dude.
I have no idea, honestly, what we talked about for like the past hour, but you know, it was cool. And I want to give a minute here at the end for people to go and find your content too.
Sure. You can find me on Instagram for my podcast. The updates for that show name was Taken Podcast. I share updates for that on a page called Hibby Productions. And then I also have a fitness page called HD Training. And then you can also find our podcast page on Facebook as well. I haven't quite reached out into making a Twitter account, but
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
That's a bad realm. I haven't even made a Twitter. I've never made a Twitter. I've never been on Twitter. I don't want to go on Twitter because there's just a bunch of people complaining. Like,
all right, I'll take your advice
Facebook.
then.
When Facebook first started, it was a way of like, hey, I'm doing this. Hey, I'm doing this to show people where you're at. And then it turned into a bunch of people bitching about their problems. And now it's just like depression memes on Facebook that everyone likes and laughs at because they can relate to it.
Right. No,
I
I get that.
I get it. He's sad and he's looking at the clouds and the clouds are saying you're going to die. And I'm like, oh, that person's severely ill on the inside. Someone might need to talk to them.
I'd have a comment on that, but we'd be here for another half hour.
Well, it was awesome talking to you, Jake. And everybody, check out his content and stay tuned for our next episode.